you're not drinking, then you're not playing. But you've got the music, you've got the music in you, don't you? Down on the west coast, I get this feeling.
When did you start Wild and Free Jewelry?
Seems so long ago now. I started when I was 19, and it was just an Etsy shop back then, like 2011, and I just started it for fun. It was like feather necklaces on a leather string and really basic, just like me doing it on the side. Yeah.
While you were going to school?
Exactly, while I was at UCSB, and I actually was studying photography right before I transferred to UCSB, so I had like all this knowledge on photography, and I used that to like photograph my stuff on my friends or on myself.
Yeah.
So it kind of started as like just a passion of photography and like design.
So it's one thing to make these things for yourself or maybe for your friends, but what motivated you to start an Etsy store?
I kind of started the shop to begin with because I had a lot of photos that I would take for my photography classes of friends wearing things I made. My friends were like, why don't you just sell that stuff? And I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. So I started an Etsy, and I was featured on the Etsy homepage within like a month or something, and that made my shop like blow up right away. And I think because of my photography that I was taking, like everything had a distinct look, and it was all really like vintage looking. So it kind of became like an aesthetic of my shop.
How did it grow? Like, I know you started with the Etsy shop, and now you have your own online e-commerce store.
Yeah.
How did you get from that point to the web store?
When I graduated, I kind of realized that just having Etsy wasn't really like professional, and it was getting to the point where I felt like I needed to present myself in a professional way. So I took web design at the City College after I graduated and just taught myself how to make websites, and then just having that knowledge, I was able to like apply it to templates on Shopify and like tweak it to make it a little bit better.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
I can't believe you took the initiative to like continue on learning to figure out how to make the website yourself.
Yeah, I feel
so
like
cool.
I've learned that if you want something done, sometimes you just have to do it yourself. So I just really stuck with that.
How did you learn to make everything?
I would just see something and kind of like figure out how to make it. Like the mermaid crowns, I had like a vision, and I kind of just like messed around with materials until it looked like how I wanted. So I just developed my own like style.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it kind of just happened from there.
What do you think influences your style and influences the aesthetic of the brand?
So many things. I think definitely nature, like, and Santa Barbara especially is a huge influence on that because there's like the ocean and then the mountains. And the way my family raised me has a huge like component to do with it too. And so I grew up like really centered with Native American culture, and everything it taught me about like seeing the world was always like centered on nature and Native American ideology and stuff like that. So I have like a really strong connection to that culture, and it was really engulfed in it when I was younger. Anything that reminds me of like mystical, like fantasy things. A lot of my designs are kind of influenced by that, like remembering what it's like to be a kid and like just being really fascinated by nature and everything that's like really inspiring that centers around that.
It has so much depth to your brand, you know?
Yeah.
Also, I noticed you attend a lot of festivals too.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. Does that influence the brand in any way, or?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I just love going to festivals because, well, there's like actually a few reasons, but obviously the music. And then I love that it's like cultures from all around the world that come together. They're super like centered on like connecting humans and like sharing love, and it's like there's not like judgments. Like there's so many different cultures and everyone's together just like appreciating the music and like appreciating art, and I think that's really important. And I love that like philosophy towards life and towards viewing other humans. So that's one reason why I keep going back to them again and again.
So let's talk about some of your favorite pieces.
Okay.
Tell me about these.
So this top, I think I've worn it to death. It's by Realization Par. And my favorite thing to pair it with are these sequin bell bottoms by Girl on a Vine.
I mean, I'm sure you get stopped all the time.
Yeah, people like chase me down the street wondering where they're from. This is like what I would wear when I'm working or if I'm just going to the store or whatever.
Yeah.
And these pants are by Show Me Your Moo Moo. You can just cut them if you're like not tall enough, which is amazing because I feel like—
Did you cut these?
No, I didn't cut these. They're
Okay.
like the perfect length for me, but I know obviously not everyone is like that. So
Yeah.
it's great to know you can just chop it off if you wanted.
I would have to chop them off. Yeah. Do you have any prized possessions or anything like that?
The one thing I came to mind when you said that is this dress that is actually like a vintage dress, but
Wow.
I am obsessed with it, and I just keep it in my closet because I think it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like,
gorgeous.
Yeah, and it has a slit right here.
Oh my god.
I know. I found it at a consignment store and I almost started crying because it was just so good. This piece is designed by Buffalo Girl from Australia. It's actually a custom bag that they designed for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's this part on it?
This is a moonstone. Yeah, I know.
So the attention to detail is awesome.
I know, the Afghan embellishments are amazing. And just even the textiles from Guatemala, like each town has like a certain style they do. And I think it's really cool just like the concept of using all these different cultures to like make one thing. Really cool uniting things like that. And then there's this one which is my favorite. It's like a black design. It's really hard to do black because there's rarely black vintage jackets. But
that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Is if these are all vintage.
Yeah, all the denim's vintage or second hand. I think it's really important to like upcycle things and reuse because there's so much waste.
So you're sold in Free People.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that came about.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think it happened partially because I worked there at the store for a long time, and I never like reached out to them, but I always secretly hoped they would like reach out to me. Like a year and a half ago, I went to like Powell and I like turned off my phone because I wanted to detox from technology. And then I came back like after 2 weeks, and then there was like an email from Free People like the day I left, and it was like that they wanted to carry my stuff. That's kind of how it began. And then I made the decision to do it, and it was really hard the first time, but I've kind of gotten like better at managing it now since I've been through it a few times.
Yeah, I'm sure it's tough because every piece is handmade.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, if you're sending like bulk orders to them, I mean, every piece has been touched and loved by you.
Yeah,
so,
and I like always want it to look like we put a lot of attention to detail and like care and everything. So I don't want to ever be like mass produced, and that's one thing that's hard with working with Free People because I don't want it to be mass produced, but I do love them. Like a really core important part of the brand is that it's like really small and that I do make it, and that it's like made out of a home, you know, like, and I don't want it to seem like it's mass produced in China or something, you know. Like it needs to look like it is coming from me, because that's the whole point, is that like you can be an individual that makes things and like follow your dreams and like make that your life, and I don't want it to seem like it's deterring from that whole philosophy.
So that initial feeling that you had when you got the email from Free People to get your stuff in their stores, I know it must have been like overwhelming, but what about you kind of drove you to get past that and have a leap of faith and make it happen anyway?
I think there's always this like internal, like, I don't even know, like guide that I have with being creative. Like I know a lot of people, there's like fear associated with being creative and like rejection, but for some reason, for me, I've never had that. I always like think creativity is one thing I always like really wanted to share. Like if it's anything involving being creative, I'm like, yes, I want to do it. But with Free People in particular, I knew it was going to be hard just because I didn't have the resources to make it happen easily.
Right.
And I had like so many friends and parts of my family coming over and helping me just because it was so much work, and they're so supportive. Just having that, like not being afraid to ask for help and really trusting in your creativity. And like I know it is really scary to put yourself out there and like jump and make that decision, but if you think about it, like there's not really anything that you can lose. Like yeah, it might be scary, and then if you fail, you just pick yourself back up again and do something else, you know? Like it might suck at first, but there's gonna be this really great like reward no matter what happens. Like you're either gonna learn from the rejection and do something better, or you're gonna get it and it's gonna push you to do other things too. So I think instead of like looking at it as this like really scary thing, it can be looked at as like a learning experience and a really exciting lesson.
Right.
So I tried to look at it like that, and I think my inherent like ability to look at the world is generally really positive. So just having that like like tweaking your perception a little bit to shape the way you see things can really lead you in the right direction and make it less scary and make it more of an adventure rather than like a really frightening task that you have to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know, I always say just feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And like once you do it, it's so rewarding to
Yeah.
actually be on the other side and like
Exactly.
having done it. So yeah.
And a lot of times too, after you do it, you're like, oh, that was it. Like
Yeah.
with the Free People order, like I was telling you, I had like many mental breakdowns where I was like so stressed and just crying. Like there's no way I can do this. Like why did I say yes? Like this is the worst idea ever. But then when you're past that, you're like, that was fine. Like
Right.
what? I survived. I'm still who I am. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's one thing I like also really want to like put out there when I have my brand and just sharing my story is that I think people should really believe in themselves, and society constantly makes you feel insecure and like you're doing something wrong, and like there's all these obstacles that are put forth by like the mass media, and that all isn't even real, you know? Like I think it's really important to detach yourself from that and fully just focus on like what you want and how you feel as a human, and like what really is like pulling you in that direction. So that like revelation for me was really important, and that happened when I was like 13 or 14, and since then I was trying to like overcome all these insecurity things I had from growing up as even just a woman. So I think that's something that's really driven me to like keep close to that positive mindset, because it's so important. Like perception and mindset is everything, and a lot of people don't realize that, or don't even realize the power they have with their thoughts. So it'd be great to be able to project that and share that so it can help people look at things differently.